I wasn't looking for secrets. Just a pen. That damn pen. It was a Thursday night, somewhere between the second beer and brushing my teeth. The kids were at my sister's for the night, some sleepover thing. The house was quiet in that way only houses with kids can be when they're suddenly empty. You don't realize how much sound fills a space until it's gone. She was in the shower. I remember hearing the water running upstairs. And I just needed a pen. Nothing special. One of those black gel ones she liked. She always had a stash in the drawer of her desk. I walked into her little study, same as I had 100 times. Her laptop was open but asleep, a glass of wine half full beside it, lipstick on the rim. Everything was just so. I pulled open the top drawer. Pens, as expected. And paperclips, sticky notes, a few receipts folded into strange origami shapes. But tucked beneath the pens, almost hidden, was a small, navy blue book. Leather cover, soft from years of handling. A ribbon bookmark. Her handwriting on the first page, June 2007. The year we got married. I know what you're thinking. Close it. Leave it. Respect her privacy. That thought crossed my mind too. I sat there with my hand on the cover for a good 30 seconds, feeling the weight of it. But something was wrong. Something about the way it was buried, half concealed, like it wasn't meant to be found. Like it had been hidden, not stored. And I wish I could say I walked away. I wish I could tell you I left it untouched and slept like a baby that night. But I opened it. And I've never slept the same since. The first entry was innocent enough. June 17th. I don't know why I'm starting this now, of all times. Maybe because it's real. We're married. We did it. I can't stop looking at the ring on my hand. I keep thinking, this is it. This is my life now. I remember our wedding. Courthouse, simple. Her in that green dress she wore again the next New Year's. We weren't flashy people. Never had the money to be. We toasted with grocery store champagne and danced in the living room, barefoot. Reading her words felt like a time machine. Like opening a photo album made of thoughts. He makes me laugh. That's what I always come back to. I've known men who make me feel more. But never one who makes me feel safe. Until him. That line stopped me. More? More what? I kept reading. The entries jumped around. A page from 2008, then one from 2010. Gaps of months, sometimes years. She wasn't a regular diarist, more like someone who wrote when the words couldn't stay in anymore. There were entries about the kids being born. About her mother's passing. About little moments, a fight we had about money, a trip to the coast, the first time she saw me cry. And then things started to shift. I saw him again today. I shouldn't have gone. I told myself I was just curious, just catching up. But the second he smiled at me, I remembered who I used to be. I miss her. I miss feeling like anything was possible. Is it wrong to want more? My stomach turned. I flipped back, looking for a name, a hint, anything. But there was nothing. Just him. And again, a few pages later. I kissed him today. God help me. I don't even know why I'm writing this down, maybe because it feels less real on paper. I told myself it was a mistake. That I love my husband. That I love my children. But I've been lying. Not just to them, to myself. My hands were sweating. There's a moment, when your brain tries to protect you from impact. Like you're skidding on ice and your body braces for the hit. That was me, sitting in that chair, the book heavy in my lap, her voice in my head. I should have stopped. But I didn't. I turned the page. If he asked, I'd go. I'd leave it all. That's what scares me the most. I used to think I was strong. Loyal. But love makes liars out of us all. I heard the shower turn off. I closed the book fast, too fast. The bookmark slipped out, landing on the floor like a dead leaf. I picked it up, shoved it back in at random, and slid the diary back into the drawer. My hands were shaking. I grabbed a pen, the stupid pen I'd come in for, and walked out. Upstairs, she was wrapped in a towel, rubbing lotion into her arms. "You find your pen?" she asked, not looking up. "Yeah," I said. "Got it." She smiled. "See? I always know where everything is." I kissed her goodnight. I told her I loved her. And I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering who the hell my wife really was. I didn't read more the next night. Or the one after. I tried to be normal. Tried to forget. But something had opened. And I couldn't close it. By Sunday night, the drawer was open again. And that was when I found it. A single sentence, scrawled in red ink. "I'm not sure the baby is his." That sentence sat on the page like a bloody fingerprint. "I'm not sure the baby is his." It was dated October 2012, 8 months before our son was born. I sat in the dark, in the same desk chair where I'd opened this thing the first time, and I stared at those words for a long time. My mouth was dry. My pulse was in my ears. I didn't move. Our son's room was right down the hall. Back then, in 2012, we'd been trying. Or rather, I'd been trying. She'd gone off the pill, we'd started tracking things, the whole 9 yards. It wasn't easy. Took almost a year before she got pregnant. At least that's what I believed. I flipped back a page, then another. The handwriting was frantic, slanted. Like her hand couldn't keep up with her thoughts. He said he missed me. Said he never stopped. And I said I didn't want to hear it, but I didn't stop him either. God help me. One night. That's all it was supposed to be. Next page. It was stupid. I know it. We didn't use protection. It didn't feel real at the time, like I was watching someone else live my life. Then another, torn at the edge like it had been ripped out hastily. I can't tell him. I won't. It would destroy him. And what if it's his? What if it is? I have to believe that. I have to. I stopped reading. Shut the book, stood up, and paced the room. I didn't want to know. That's what I told myself. I didn't want a test. I didn't want proof. Because proof would mean choice. And choice, in situations like this, is never clean. You start testing blood, and it's not just paternity you question. It's everything. Every birthday, every hug. Every, "I love you, Dad." But the thought, once planted, doesn't leave you alone. I slept downstairs that night. Told her I had work to finish. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "Don't stay up too late." I stared at my son's baby pictures until morning. The next day, I went through the motions. Work. Emails. Lunch with a colleague who never stopped talking about his fantasy football league. And all the while, her diary burned in the back of my mind like a cigarette against skin. When I got home, she was making spaghetti. My favorite. She poured me a glass of wine, asked about my day, talked about needing to book the dentist for our daughter. Perfect wife. Perfect mother. And I couldn't stop seeing red ink. Later that night, when the house was quiet and she'd gone to bed, I opened the drawer again. I don't know what I expected. An answer, maybe. A reason. A confession wrapped up with a bow. But all I found was more pages. More pieces. It's his. It has to be. I just have to keep believing that. He texted again. I didn't answer. I won't. That part of my life is over. The baby kicked today. Hard. He smiled when he felt it. Said he's never been more proud. I wanted to cry. She never named him. Not once. Just, he. And that was worse, somehow. The vagueness. The absence of detail. Like she'd scrubbed him clean from the record but couldn't erase the stain. I started to wonder if maybe I'd met him. One of those friends from college. Or a coworker from back when she worked at the art supply store. Someone I'd shaken hands with once. Someone who knew. I started replaying the past like an old home movie. Pausing, zooming in. The way she used to check her phone. The way she laughed with some people and not others. I drove myself half mad. A week passed. I tried to let it go. I really did. Tried to be present. To smile. To play catch with my boy and help my daughter with her math homework. But the weight was there, behind everything. Heavy as stone. Then something happened. We were in the car, the four of us, headed to a friend's barbecue. She was driving. The kids were bickering in the back seat about which playlist to put on. I was scrolling through messages on my phone. And she said, offhand, like nothing, "Do you remember that guy from college who used to write me poems?" I looked up. "What guy?" "Oh," she said, waving it off, "no one. Just remembered something he said about summers and honeysuckle. Made me think of that house we rented in Asheville." I nodded. But inside, something clicked. Poems. Her diary was full of them. Snippets. Quotes. One in particular had stood out, written in the margin in unfamiliar handwriting. "I loved you once in shadows. Now I must love you in silence." That wasn't hers. And suddenly I knew, she hadn't written this alone. That night, after they were asleep, I went back to the desk. I opened the diary, this time looking not for entries, but for handwriting. And I found it. 6, maybe 7 entries scattered over the years, written not in her tight, slanted script, but in someone else's hand. A man's. They were short. Vague. Half poetry, half confession. "You were never meant to be mine. But I wanted you anyway. I saw you in the grocery store. Aisle 3. You didn't see me. I almost said your name. He doesn't know. He'll never know." It wasn't a diary. It was a conversation. One I'd never been part of. That's when I realized, she kept this book not just to write, but to read. To revisit. To remember. To hold on to something I never even knew existed. One night, when I thought I'd reached the bottom, I found the last entry. Newer ink. Just a few months old. "He called me again. He said he's back. That he wants to see him. Just once. He doesn't want to cause trouble. Just, to see." I sat down hard. To see him. Not me. Not her. Him. And there it was, the line I couldn't cross. The one I couldn't unsee. She had made a choice years ago. Buried it. Lived with it. Built a life on top of it. But he hadn't. He was still out there. And now, he wanted to meet my son. I didn't sleep that night. Sat out on the porch with the dog and 2 glasses of whiskey, one I drank, the other just sat there. I kept staring at it like it might answer something. He wanted to see my son. That's what she wrote. Not our son. My son. I don't know if that word choice was hers or mine. But it settled in my chest like a cold brick. I didn't know this man. Didn't know if he lived in town or out of state, if he had a family of his own. But he was real. That much I knew now. Not a ghost. Not just a mistake from long ago. Real enough to want something. To want him. And that, more than the cheating, more than the lying, that made something break in me. Because until that moment, I could pretend it was just the past. Something buried. But now it was knocking on the door. For 2 days, I didn't touch the diary. Didn't even look at the drawer. I went to work, came home, helped with homework, mowed the lawn. Smiled when I had to. Nodded when expected. But my mind wouldn't quit. If he reached out again, if she agreed to meet him, where would that leave me? What would she tell him? What would she tell me? And the question that kept chewing through the edges of my sanity, did she love him? It's a quiet kind of torture, asking a question you'll never get a straight answer to. By Thursday, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited till she went out to run errands, then I pulled out the book. Sat down. And this time, I did something I'd never done before. I turned to the back cover. Nothing. Just leather. But then I noticed a tiny crease in the binding. I peeled it back, and tucked between the back cover and the last page, folded twice over, was a business card. White. No logo. Just a name and number. Ethan Caldwell. 21355533942. The name meant nothing to me. But the number stared up at me like a loaded gun. I shouldn't have called it. I know that. There's a line between discovery and obsession, and I crossed it the moment I hit call. It rang twice. Hello? Male voice. Mid-40s, maybe. Calm. I didn't answer. Hello, he said again. I hung up. My heart was pounding like I'd robbed a bank. I told myself that was it. I'd gotten too close. Needed to back off. Then, 3 hours later, I got a text. Unknown number, who is this? I didn't answer. Then another. Unknown number, you called this number. Do I know you? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed, do you know Emily W? His reply came 10 seconds later. Unknown number, yes. The next message came 30 minutes later. Unknown number, if this is about him. I just want to talk. One conversation. No trouble. I didn't answer. He didn't text again. But that night, I printed the message and stuffed it into the drawer next to the diary. A little artifact. Proof this wasn't a dream. And I started thinking. What if she already met him? What if our son already knows him? I watched her for the rest of the week. Watched how she looked at our son when he laughed. Watched how she ran her fingers through his hair, how she leaned into his shoulder when they read together on the couch. Nothing seemed off. Nothing changed. But that's what haunted me. Because if she was lying now, she was good at it. And if she wasn't? Then this whole thing was one-sided, just a man clawing his way out of the past while she tried to keep the door shut. And either way, I was caught in the middle. That Saturday, I asked her a question I hadn't asked in years. Do you believe in soulmates? She blinked. Where'd that come from? I don't know. Just been thinking. She thought a moment, then said, I think you can love more than one person in a lifetime. But there's a difference between love and choosing someone. And you chose me? Every day, she said, with a soft smile. And I believed her. God help me, I believed her. But belief and trust are two different things. And the next morning, I pulled out the diary again. Because there was one thing I hadn't checked. The final page. The final page wasn't dated. No month, no year. Just a few lines, barely more than a whisper. If it ever comes to it, if the truth has to come out, I'll choose the man who stayed. That was it. I read it 3 times. Then a 4th. And something inside me cracked. Not from anger. Not even from grief. Just from knowing she'd written it for me. Not to read, maybe. But for me all the same. And it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like the last brick in a wall that had been built around both of us for years. A wall of lies, omissions, maybe even love. But a wall, nonetheless. And now, I was on the wrong side of it. I started watching her closer. Not because I didn't trust her, I wasn't that naive anymore. I just wanted to understand the pattern. Who she called. Where she went. What she didn't say. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't always come with yelling or slammed doors. Sometimes, it comes with silence. With missing details. With a name she avoids mentioning. And once you start noticing what's missing, you can't stop. The first break came at a school event. Our son had a science fair. We stood by his little trifold display, beaming like all the other parents. She had her arm around his shoulder. I took a few pictures. And then I noticed her glance across the gym. Just a flick of her eyes. A hesitation. I followed her gaze. A tall man stood by the drinks table, talking to a woman I didn't recognize. Tan jacket. Blue jeans. Nothing remarkable. But she looked away from him too fast. Like a reflex. I turned to her. You okay? She smiled. Yeah. Just hot in here. But her hand tightened on our son's shoulder. And his eyes, when I looked at that man again, I saw it. Not just resemblance. Something deeper. The shape of the face. The way he tilted his head when he laughed. I didn't say anything. Not then. Not there. But I knew. It was him. That night, I waited until she was asleep. Then I took my son's hairbrush from the bathroom. Slipped it into a Ziploc. Tucked it under my coat. And the next morning, I made a call. Found a discreet DNA testing service across town. Cash only. No questions asked. It felt dirty. Like a betrayal of my own. But I needed to know. A week later, I got the results. He wasn't mine. The test said 0% probability of paternity. Not even a whisper of doubt. And let me tell you something. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just sat in my truck in the parking lot behind the clinic, staring at the paper. 17 years. I'd taught him to ride a bike. Tucked him in every night for years. Watched him grow from a squalling red-faced infant into a curious, stubborn, beautiful boy. And now a piece of paper was telling me none of that meant anything. But here's the part they don't tell you in movies. You don't stop loving your kid just because your blood's not in his veins. You just start wondering if he'll ever love you back, when he finds out. I went home and didn't say a word. Did the dishes. Took the trash out. Read a bedtime story like always. But something in me had changed. Not gone cold. Just quiet. Waiting. 2 nights later, she came to me. I need to tell you something, she said, standing in the doorway of the bedroom. I looked up. Yeah. She didn't sit down. Just stood there, hands clenched. He reached out again. I didn't ask who. I told him no. I told him this isn't his life. That he doesn't get to just walk in now. But what? Her voice cracked. But I never told you. She sat on the edge of the bed. Looked at her hands. I made a mistake. A long time ago. And I've been trying to bury it ever since. But it's clawing its way out, and I can't stop it anymore. I nodded. Let her talk. She told me everything. The affair. The timing. The guilt. How she prayed every day during the pregnancy that the baby was mine. How she convinced herself it was. How she shoved the doubt so far down it stopped making noise, until now. And when she finished, she looked at me with those eyes I'd loved for so long and said, "I never stopped loving you. I chose you. Every day." And I said, "I know. But knowing isn't the same as forgetting. And forgiveness doesn't come cheap." 3 days after her confession, I opened the door and found him standing there. Ethan Caldwell. He didn't introduce himself. Didn't have to. Same posture. Same eyes. Same slanted smile I'd seen on my son since the day he learned to lie. "Can I come in?" he asked. I didn't move. Just stood there, hand on the doorframe, blocking the entrance. "You have some nerve," I said. He nodded like he expected that. Maybe he did. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I had to see him." "No," I said. He looked down at his shoes, then back up. "You don't have to tell him who I am. I just wanted a glimpse. I've been carrying this a long time. I've been raising it," I said. That landed. He looked like I'd hit him. "Look," he said, "quiet now, I'm not trying to take anything. I just needed to know he was okay. He's fine. Better than fine. He has a family." He nodded again. "Then I'll go." He turned like he meant it. But then he stopped. Reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. "If he ever wants to know. Or if you change your mind." He placed it on the porch railing and walked back to his car. Didn't look back. I watched his taillights vanish down the street. And I stared at that envelope like it was radioactive. Inside was a letter. 3 pages, handwritten. Addressed simply, "To the boy I never knew." And a photo. A black and white picture of Ethan as a teenager, standing beside a man I assumed was his father, same build, same eyes. It was dated June 1990. I didn't tell her about the visit. Didn't mention the letter. Didn't say a word. I put the envelope in the back of my toolbox, under the socket sets I never use. Buried it the same way she buried the truth for 17 years. And then I tried to move on. But the thing about silence, it doesn't stay quiet. Not forever. A week later, our son came home from school different. Not loud. Not grinning. Just quiet. Thoughtful. We sat down for dinner, spaghetti again, and halfway through the meal, he said, "Is Ethan my real dad?" The fork slipped from my hand and hit the plate. My wife froze. He looked at both of us. Calm. Direct. "I heard you two arguing last week. You said, he wants to see him. I'm the only him in this house." She swallowed hard. "Baby. I'm not a baby. Just tell me the truth." So we did. Not all of it. Not the dirty details. But enough. That she'd made a mistake. That there was a man who might be his biological father. That it didn't change who raised him. He didn't cry. He didn't yell. He just got up, walked to his room, and shut the door. The days that followed were brittle. He wasn't angry. Not on the surface. But something shifted. He started asking questions. What's he like? Where does he live? What does he do? I answered what I could. My wife did the same. And then he asked the one question we both dreaded. Can I meet him? We argued about it after he went to bed. She said no. Absolutely not. I didn't agree. Not out of generosity. Not even out of empathy. Just out of logic. Because once the question is asked, it grows. Festers. Turns into resentment. Better to control the terms than let curiosity blow the whole thing apart later. So I made a choice. I pulled the letter from the toolbox. Showed it to her. And we agreed, if it had to happen, it'd happen on our terms. We told him the next day. 1 hour. Public place. No promises. He agreed. So did Ethan. The meeting was set for the following Saturday, 10 a.m., at a park downtown. Neutral ground. Open space. Exit routes. I didn't sleep the night before. Neither did she. When the morning came, we drove in silence. Our son sat in the back seat, tapping his knee. When we got to the park, Ethan was already there. Jeans. Jacket. Nervous energy. He stood when we approached. And then, for a moment, no one spoke. My son looked at him. Looked into him. Then he said, "So you're the guy." Ethan nodded. "I guess I am." They sat on a bench. We stood nearby. Listening but not hovering. They talked about music. Sports. A little about school. A little about life. Ethan never said, "Son." Never pushed. Just answered what he was asked. After 30 minutes, my boy stood up. "I'm done," he said. "Thanks for coming." Ethan nodded. "Thank you for letting me." And that was it. We walked back to the car. And halfway home, our son said, "He's just a guy." I nodded. "Not a bad guy," he added. "But not my dad." And that's when I finally cried. Silent, slow tears behind the wheel. Because he didn't say it for me. He said it for himself. Grief doesn't always come when you expect it. Sometimes it waits. That meeting at the park? That should have been the hard part. That should have been the moment that broke us, if anything was going to. But it wasn't. It was the days after. When life tried to resume like nothing had happened. When school went on, and dinners were cooked, and laundry piled up, just like before. That's when it hit me. The truth didn't blow up our life. It didn't torch the house or split the family down the middle. It just changed the temperature. Dropped it by a few degrees. Made the air a little thinner, the silence a little heavier. Like living with a broken bone that never quite healed right. She didn't say much after the meeting. We didn't fight. We didn't cry. We just coexisted. The kind of peace you get after a storm tears through and leaves everything standing, but rearranged. She slept closer to the edge of the bed. I stopped bringing her coffee in the mornings. Small things. Petty things. But they mattered. I still loved her. I think she still loved me. But there was something else in the house now. Something between us. History. Our son was quieter, too. He didn't act angry. Didn't pull away. He still laughed at dumb jokes, still played catch in the yard. But sometimes I'd catch him staring out the window, and I knew he was thinking about Ethan. Not missing him, necessarily. Just measuring. Comparing. Wondering what part of himself had come from a stranger. Then came the letter. Not from Ethan. From his lawyer. Polite. Respectful. But clear. Mr. Caldwell requests to establish legal acknowledgement of paternity. He is not seeking custody or visitation, but desires to have his biological connection formally recognized. He wishes to leave a record, for medical history and transparency. This is not an attempt to disrupt the current family dynamic. It wasn't a demand. Just a request. But it hit me like a punch in the chest. Legal acknowledgement. As if everything I'd done, every scraped knee, every school project, every nightmare soothed, could be filed away as unofficial. I didn't respond right away. Neither did she. But he was 15 now. Nearly 16. Old enough that, in some states, he could choose. Old enough that the courts might listen. So we sat him down. Told him about the letter. And we asked what he wanted. He shrugged. It doesn't change anything, he said. He's not part of my life. But if he wants his name on some piece of paper, I don't care. Then he looked at me. You're still my dad. Simple. Uncomplicated. And yet it gutted me. Because I didn't know how long that would last. We agreed to the acknowledgement, on the condition that it didn't affect my parental rights. No changes to custody. No name changes. Just a quiet note in some sealed file. Ethan agreed. The paperwork was filed. And just like that, I shared fatherhood with a man I barely knew. Time passed. Spring turned to summer. Our daughter had her first crush. Our son got his driver's permit. Life kept moving, like it always does. But I wasn't the same. I went through the motions. I smiled. I laughed. But part of me was stuck back in that drawer, staring at a line of red ink. I'm not sure the baby is his. It echoed. Still does, some nights. I forgave her. I really did. But forgetting? That's a different beast. She and I started counseling. Marriage on paper isn't the same as a marriage in practice. And if we were going to stay, really stay, we needed to rebuild from the studs. The therapist asked me once, "Why are you still here?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "Because when I look at my kids, I see the life I built. Not the life I lost." She nodded like that made sense. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Sometimes, the past doesn't stay buried because it doesn't want to. It claws, it whispers, and it waits for the crack in your armor. Ours came in September. A message showed up on my son's phone, a number we didn't recognize. He showed it to me right away. Said he thought it was a scam. But it wasn't. It was Ethan's sister. She wrote, "I know who you are. I just wanted to say hi. I'm your aunt. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. No pressure. No demands. Just another stone dropped in the already rippling water." My son looked confused, a little unnerved. "I didn't even know he had a sister," he said. "Neither did we." And that's when I realized something that made my stomach turn. We never asked. Never once had we asked who Ethan was beyond the affair. We never asked about his family. His story. Where he came from. What kind of people we were tangling with by letting him through that door. We talked about it, the three of us. My wife, our son, and me. She was adamant. This wasn't part of the deal. Our son was more measured. "I'm not talking to her," he said. "I don't even know her. But it's weird, right? That she knows who I am. And me?" I was stuck between the two of them. Because I knew what it meant. Ethan had told someone. Someone close. Which meant he wasn't done. I called him. Didn't text. Didn't write. Just dialed the number and waited. He picked up on the second ring. "You said you wouldn't disrupt anything," I said. "I didn't. Your sister reached out." A pause. "She's not part of this," he said. "She was curious. That's all. I didn't ask her to do anything." "But you told her." "She's my sister." I breathed in. Long, slow. "You said you didn't want to cause trouble." "I don't. I swear to you." He sounded sincere. Almost desperate. "I just wanted to know him. Now I do. I'm not asking for anything else." But I didn't believe him. Not anymore. 2 weeks passed. No more messages. No knocks at the door. We thought maybe it was over. Then came the envelope. Thick, legal-sized, hand-delivered by courier. Not from Ethan. From his parents. A letter, signed and notarized, formally requesting to meet their grandson. No lawyer. No threats. Just polite entitlement. The kind of language that's all velvet and iron. As his biological grandparents, we feel it is important to establish a connection with our grandson, for heritage and family continuity. We believe such a relationship will be mutually beneficial. They included a photo of themselves. Smiling. Kind-looking. Regular people. The kind who leave casseroles on doorsteps and talk about ancestry. But it chilled me to the bone. Because this wasn't a request. Not really. It was the beginning of something else. Something harder to stop. We took the letter to a lawyer. She read it, set it down gently, and said, "This isn't an immediate threat. But it's a warning shot." She told us what to watch for. What to document. What lines not to cross. They don't have rights unless you give them rights, she said. But if your son ever opens that door, even a crack, they'll walk through. And I saw the future, years from now, maybe, when he's old enough to make his own choices. When he's curious, or angry, or just tired of secrets. That door won't stay closed forever. That night, I sat on the porch again. Same spot. Same chair. And I thought about legacy. What it means to be a father. Whether it's blood, or time, or sacrifice. And then my son came out, sat beside me. He didn't say anything at first. Just stared up at the stars. Then he said, "I don't want them." I turned to look at him. "The grandparents," he said. "They're not my family. You are." I didn't say anything. Didn't trust my voice. He kept looking up. "But someday. I might want to know." He looked at me then. "Is that okay?" And I nodded. Because it had to be. We didn't respond to the letter. Didn't need to. The lawyer said silence was the safest reply. No acknowledgement meant no opening. No door to push on. Still, we braced ourselves. For a knock. Another envelope. Maybe even a stranger at the edge of the school parking lot, pretending to be lost. I started watching the street more. Checking license plates. Noticing when cars circled the block twice. But nothing happened. Days passed. Weeks. Fall crept in. Leaves turned and fell like nothing had changed. And maybe that was the problem, the world had the nerve to keep turning like it didn't know what we were living with. The quiet got heavy. Not like a threat. Not even like fear. More like waiting for a shoe that never drops. We started to find our rhythm again. Family dinners. Homework at the table. The dog sneaking socks out of the laundry basket. I started bringing her coffee again. Black, 2 sugars, just like always. She smiled when I handed it to her. Small smile. Careful. But it stayed a little longer each morning. We talked more. Not always about us. Sometimes about the kids. Sometimes about what we were reading. But the words started to flow again. Not like they used to, but enough. Trust comes back in inches, not miles. One night, I found my son in the garage, digging through boxes. "What are you looking for?" I asked. "My baby pictures," he said. I nodded. Top shelf, green tub. He found it. Sat cross-legged on the concrete floor. Pulled out photo after photo, tiny fingers, first bath, birthday cakes, muddy shoes. He held up one. Me holding him at the hospital, new and red-faced and screaming. "You looked terrified," he said. "I was." He laughed. "Mom said you passed out." "She's not wrong." He didn't ask who took the photo. He didn't ask where Ethan was then. He didn't ask the things I was afraid he might. He just looked at me and said, "You were there." And that was enough. But memory's a funny thing. Some nights, I'd catch her staring at her phone a second too long. Or pausing at the mailbox before coming inside. Small things. But when you've been betrayed once, small things grow teeth. I didn't accuse. Didn't dig. But I watched. And one Thursday, when she said she was heading out for groceries, I waited 5 minutes. Then I followed her. Not proud of it. Still did it. She didn't go to the store. She went to the park. And he was there. Ethan. I parked 2 rows back, watched from the driver's seat. They didn't hug. Didn't touch. Just sat on a bench, far from the playground, talking. 15 minutes. Then she got up, walked back to her car, and drove off. I stayed. Ethan didn't leave right away. He sat there a while longer, staring at nothing. Then he pulled something out of his pocket, a small book, and flipped through it. It wasn't until he left that I realized what it was. A copy of the diary. Or maybe the original, and mine was the copy. I didn't tell her I saw them. Not that night. Not the next. But it gnawed at me. The talk. The bench. The book. What else had she hidden? And more importantly, why? I kept it in for 5 days. 5 days of pretending I didn't know. Of looking at her across the dinner table and wondering if I ever really had. 5 days of brushing my teeth beside her in the mirror, listening to the sound of her rinse and spit like it was the tick of a bomb. Then, finally, I asked. We were in bed. Quiet. She was reading. I wasn't pretending to sleep. I said, "How long have you been meeting with him?" Her book didn't even tremble. She just closed it slowly and placed it on the nightstand. Then she looked at me, and didn't lie. 3 times. Why? She sighed. Like she was exhaling something heavy. He's not asking for more. He's not trying to take anything. But he has questions. About our son. About me. About the kind of person I turned into after I left him behind. Do you love him? She didn't answer at first. I don't know, she said. I think. I did. A part of me always might. But that part's not in charge anymore. And the diary? She turned her face away. I gave him the original. I wanted it out of the house. I didn't want you to find it again. I didn't want me to find it again. You kept a copy? Yes. For our son. Someday. That was the moment. Right there. That's when I knew, we weren't going back to before. We were in something new now. Not better, not worse. Just different. A marriage patched with threads of truth and silence, stitched by years and secrets. And I had to decide if I could live with that. 3 nights later, Ethan called. Not texted. Not emailed. Called. I answered. He said, "I'm leaving." I didn't say anything. Moving to Colorado. Job transfer. Won't be back. Just thought you should know. I waited. Then I asked, "Does he know?" "No," he said. And he won't, unless he wants to. That's his call now. Another silence. Then he added, "Thank you. For raising him." He hung up before I could respond. A week later, my son found the copy of the diary. I don't know how. Maybe he was looking. Maybe it just surfaced, like things do when they're ready. He didn't bring it to us. He read it. All of it. Then he left it on the kitchen table, closed, unreadable. At dinner that night, he said, "So that's who you were." Neither of us asked what he meant. We didn't need to. He looked at her, and said, "I think I understand now." Then he looked at me. "You too?" I nodded. My throat was too tight for words. Later, in the driveway, he asked if I hated her. I said, "No." Even after all that? I thought about it. Then I said, "Hate's easy. Living with someone, seeing all of them, and still staying? That's something else." He didn't ask anything after that. We just watched the stars. You live with it. That's the truth no one tells you. After the storm passes, after the lies are stripped bare and the shouting turns quiet, what's left isn't peace. It's life. You wake up. You put on your socks. You pack lunches. You shovel snow from the driveway. And every so often, something catches in your throat, a photo, a word, a glance, and the ache comes back. But you keep moving. Because that's what people do. 2 years have passed since that last meeting. Since the day our son found the diary and didn't run. He's in college now. Close enough to come home on weekends if he wants, far enough to miss us if he needs to. He's studying psychology. Says he wants to help people figure out why they do the things they do. Go figure. Ethan never came back. He wrote one letter after he left. Mailed it to my son's dorm. I only saw it because the boy showed it to me. Said he was proud of him. Said he had no right to be, but he was. Told him he'd always be around if he needed anything, no pressure, no expectation. Our son folded the letter and put it in his desk drawer. Said, "That's enough." And I believed him. The marriage? Still standing. Different, though. Some cracks you can't unsee. Some days I still wake up and hear that line echo in my head, "I'm not sure the baby is his." But I also see how she looks at me when I laugh. How she touches my arm when she passes. How she still wears the ring, and not because she has to. Some love survives on sheer grit. Ours did. We built something, and when it cracked, we didn't run. We patched it. Poorly, maybe. But we stayed. There's a kind of honesty in that. As for the diary? It's locked away now. Not because we're hiding it, because we've finished it. She wrote one final entry. Not for herself. Not for him. For me. Just a short paragraph. You didn't turn away. You didn't burn it all down. You stayed. I don't know what kind of man that makes you, but I'm grateful every day I wake up and see your face. And I know now, finally, that love is not just what we feel. It's what we choose. I never responded. Not in words. But I placed the entry in an envelope and put it next to my will. Because someday, long after we're gone, our children might read all of this. And when they do, I want them to know what love looks like, when it's tested. When it's tired. When it's real. That's the last page. No twist. No cliffhanger. Just a man who opened a drawer and found his whole life rewritten. And chose, against every instinct, every warning, every wound, not to walk away. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stay.